Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to be going over sections 1.5, numbers 3 and 47. I skipped section 1.4 because basically this already covers everything that we need to know in section 4. So, yeah, section 4 is just a subpart of this one. So, let's start out with number 3. Absolute values. Dun dun dun. It's not really that hard. You just got to remember that for any absolute value, you have two answers, a positive and a negative. So over here, we'll break this up into the positive answer, which is virtually just the same as rewriting it. So x minus 3 equals 9. The negative answer is the negative of x minus 3 equals 9. I'm solving two different equations, and it gives you two different answers. Add 3 to both sides. X equals 12. That's one answer. For the negative side, we're going to distribute the negative. Negative x plus 3 equals 9. All right? So now we're going to subtract 3 from each side of the equation sign. That gives us 6 equals negative x. We don't want negative x, we want positive x. So we're going to divide each side by negative 1. If we divide each side by negative 1, that leaves us with x equals negative 6. One answer there, one answer here. Two answers, just like I said. All right. That was actually one of probably the easiest you could possibly get. This is a little bit tougher. All right. So this one has a multiplication out front and an addition out back. And it's an inequality, not an equal sign, so it's a little bit more difficult. How I like to think about these is that we're trying to get this first step is we're going to try to get this absolute value by itself. Now, when a side note here is I like to think of it like this. We know how to solve this problem. It's like now we're just trying to get the x by itself. Well, I try to think of it just like this problem, just making this absolute value the x. So we're going to do the same thing that we would do to solve this problem. First, we're going to subtract 6. 6's cancel out. That leaves us with 2 times the absolute value of 4t minus 1. Now you might be tempted to distribute, but it doesn't work like that with absolute values. This is an absolute value, not a parenthesis, so we can't distribute these. This leaves us with is greater than 14. All right. I'm just going to continue to do it just like over here. And remember, this is just a side note. It's not the actual problem. All right. So we'd solve this one by dividing by 2, just like we'd solve that one. And x is greater than 7. Well, making connection to this one over here, we're going to divide 2 by each one. That leaves us with 4t minus 1, or the absolute value of 4t minus 1 is greater than 7. All right. If you have any trouble understanding how to solve that, well, first off, none of this is important anymore. This is just showing us how to solve that one. Now that we have this, we're going to work out just like we did on number 3. I'm going to go ahead and erase the top part because I'm getting close to the bottom of the board. So what we had left was the absolute value of 4t minus 1. It's greater than 7. Now it's no different than it was like with number 3. So we have the absolute value by itself, and that'll give us two answers, a positive and a negative. Positive one, 4t minus 1 is greater than 7. Just rewriting the problem about the absolute values. And we'll have the negative one, 4t minus 1. The negative of 4t minus 1 is greater than 7. Now we're just going to solve. Add 1 to both sides. 4t is greater than 8. Divide by 4. T is greater than 2. Okay? So that's one answer. Now we're going to distribute the negative sign over on this one. We have negative 4t plus 1 is greater than 7. Okay, now we're just going to solve this one. Subtract 1 from each side. That gives us 6. Negative 4t is greater than 6. Okay, now we're going to divide by negative 4. Now remember that when we divide by a negative with an inequality sign, we have to flip the sign. So t is no longer greater than, but it's less than 6 over 4, negative 6 over 4, which reduces to negative 3 over 2, or negative 1.5. Alright, so that's our answer for that one. Now we're most of the way done. The only problem left is that these are inequalities. So with an inequality, we always need to graph the solution. So let's go ahead and erase this top part because I'm at the bottom of the board. I'm going to go ahead and leave these circle ones on here so I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to be graphing on a line. So what do we have? Negative 3 halves. And we had 2. Okay? So look at this. This is like an arrow right here. Right? So t is greater than 2. It's the arrow, if you look at it right here, the arrow is pointing that way. So it's going to be going this way. Now we need to know whether it's a closed circle or an open circle. If it's a closed circle, it would be greater than or equal to. But seeing as it's just greater than, we're going to use an open circle. Okay? Same with over here. We have 3 halves. This is an arrow pointing in this direction. So that means we're going to be shading it this way. And because it's a greater than only, now it's not a greater than or equal to, it's an open circle also. Now, word of caution, that if by chance you come across an answer and it's 2 greater than t, the arrow idea won't work unless you flip it over. The t or the x or whatever variable you have has to look like this. But in doing so, if you remember like from 5th grade or something, they always talked about the alligator eating the larger number. Up here, 2 is the larger number. Well, we're going to keep that the same. 2 is still the larger number. So it's going to look like that. It's going to flip the sign, and then you can look at it as an arrow so you can graph it better. But that's only a word of caution. This part right here isn't actually part of the problem. Alright, so that's all for absolute values. That should cover pretty much everything that you need to know as far as difficulty and everything. Doesn't really get much harder than that for absolute values, except maybe adding in fractions or something of the sort. So, yep, stick around. My next video is going to be over. I'm going to go ahead and skip 1.6, which is probability, because it was so easy. I'm going to go ahead and go over our Chapter 1 review test, or our test. There's some problems on the actual test, not just the review test. All right, catch me later.